Get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 2. We're going to talk about sleep's impact on testosterone and just in general in your life. So while we're waiting to get started, we're going to start with some music. Hopefully you guys can hear this. This is the first time I've played music on a restream. I'm really glad you have a sense of humor, Marissa.
That's good. Theme song.
This is good. We are going to get started in a few minutes, but we are going live on all of the Movement Arcs platforms, Dr. T, our YouTube, our Facebook, because we want to share about sleep's impact on testosterone, but also how we show up and lead each day. So this is a huge part of what we teach in our leadership workshops is on sleep, because it boosts everything. And Dr. Marissa is an expert in this. You'll see why in a little bit. But if you do have any questions regarding this topic, go ahead and put it in the comments now. We're not going to answer them right away. This is a 30-minute live stream. We will be answering them after about 15-20 minutes of the content delivery. So don't worry, we will answer your questions. But if this topic intrigues you or someone you care about, share it. The more shares, the better, more impact. And don't you worry, this future pop will be done in just a little bit. But feel free to go refill your coffee and or water and start to get a little bobbing in. There's nothing like a little dance session in the morning. This is how we start our day at the Larson household. A little dancing, because sometimes the moods are just a little too much in the morning.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right, let me check the comments here. Make sure we're going live. All right. This is going to be fun. I'm really excited for y'all to experience Dr. Marissa's content today. Oh, yep, we are live and listening to some jams. This is great. Okay. All right. So we're going to get this party started.
Let's do it.
I'm going to stop the music. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. That was great. You can let us know our music selection also in the comments. What do you think of this future pop music selection that we had as the opening song? Now, that's a little shout out to Harrison Bernstein, who is the head of Soldiers to Sidelines. So he actually, in his seminars, which are super fun, we're actually doing an adaptive training seminar right now, like this week, with a bunch of soldier coaches, which is awesome. He always has a walk-up song or walk-in song, even on Zoom. And so I had my walk-in song was Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons group. And he had Loverboy, Surrender, I believe. Here's a good icebreaker question for you, Dr. Marissa. I know this is putting you on the spot, but if you were to have a walk-up song, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Probably some sort of lullaby for sleep.
You know they do rock and roll lullabies. Like companies take rock and roll songs, and make them into baby lullabies. Like those were my favorite. So hey, I don't blame you for that.
Yeah, like instead of Don't Stop Believing, they call it Don't Stop Sleeping or something.
Yeah, okay. I love it. All right, next time we do this together, I'll make sure that's your walk-in song.
Yeah.
Right, besides the future pop that was given to us on this platform. All right, enough jokes aside. Let's get this party started. I am Dr. Teresa Larson with Movement RX, and our job is to give you the knowledge and tools to live a lifetime of physical and emotional freedom. Now, every other week, we are doing a LinkedIn Live and a Facebook Live on different topics that will help you show up and lead more effectively and efficiently and in a healthy way. Unfortunately, it's all too often when we get stressed or triggered or, life just gets chaotic, which it is for all of us with kids, family, running a business, right? Our health can be a nice to have, and so we push it aside, versus a need to have. And we don't realize the repercussions or consequences of our daily health habits or lack thereof and what it can cause, which ultimately it impacts our longevity and time on this earth and our quality of time on this earth. So what we're doing is we're going to discuss today the sleep's impact on an important hormone, but just also in our ability to show up and lead. It won't be the last time you hear about sleep, but I'll tell you what, our company is all about getting in front of leaders and teaching leaders how to implement these skills in their lives so they can better show up for their people. Because guess what? Leaders' mental health, their physical health is contagious, and it impacts their people's mental health and physical health quite a bit. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Dr. Marissa Rescott, who is an amazing human being and started working with us a few years ago. And it's been an amazing journey with her. She shows up every day. She's very passionate about sleep, very passionate about helping people, meeting people where they're at, and has a very unique perspective on human performance, mobility, stability, and your health. And so I want to introduce her today. She'll be talking about sleep and its impact on testosterone, but she's become a very good friend and someone I'm so thankful I get to work alongside, growing this Movement RX empire. So without further ado, go ahead, Dr. Marissa. And I'm going to actually stop my video here so you can just see Dr. Marissa fully without getting distracted by me.
Dancing in the background to the pop music.
Essentially.
Yeah. Okay, yay. Thanks, T. So I'll introduce myself to you guys. I'm Marissa. I'm trained as a physical therapist, but I also recently finished up a PhD in sleep science or cognitive sciences. And the reason that I sort of got into sleep science is because I really love sleeping. And I, constantly battled with my parents when I was a youth because I could never wake up for school in the morning. Come to find out, it's because my chronotype, which you guys probably all have a chronotype, but my circadian rhythm is more toward the later side of things. So I do much better on a late wake up schedule. So that's something that I never knew as a kid. And now I know, which is really cool. The reason that I got interested in sleep and testosterone is not because I'm worried about my testosterone, because I'm a lady. The ladies do have testosterone. But my lovely boyfriend he's in the military. So my significant other is in the military, and he's kind of constantly trying to balance and push his limits when it comes to endurance training or strength training. He's got a lot of work stress, a really irregular work schedule. And so when he first came to this new job that he's in now, he had mentioned that a lot of his coworkers are on testosterone replacement therapy, and they're in like their 40s, maybe late 30s and 40s, because of the high stress and irregular sleep and just the physical demands of their job. And so using my research, my sleep research, I kind of dove into the research literature to try to find some some lifestyle things that he might be able to do to boost testosterone, or at least to keep it high enough, and so that he doesn't have to go on testosterone therapy in his 30s. So kind of what I found in that is sleep is a big one. And kind of anecdotally, there's a big difference for him, at least as far as his energy level goes and how his performance in the gym is when he's short on sleep versus and doing a bunch of strength training versus when he's short on sleep and doing endurance training versus when he's getting enough sleep and doing strength training for his energy and his vitality. And so overall, I just want to put in a little plug for sleep to begin with, like not specifically for testosterone, but sleep as just this lever that you can pull to improve everything possible that you can think about your health. So sleep is a painkiller. So it impacts how our bodies are experiencing pain. It is an appetite regulator. It is a therapist, right? So we do a lot of mental therapy during our sleep. That's when our brains are doing all sorts of emotional processing. Sleep is also a mood booster. It's a focus aid. It's a wound healer, right? We get faster wound healing when we're sleeping. When we're sleeping more, sleeping better. It's an immunity booster. It's a stress manager. It's an anabolic steroid, and it's an anti-inflammatory. So there's so many things that sleep is doing for us that I think we tend to not appreciate. And part of that's just because we don't know. And I certainly didn't know a ton about sleep until I really started to dive into it. And there are essentially no systems in your body that good sleep versus bad sleep doesn't affect. And so there's no system that you can get away with poor quality or low duration sleep. Everything kind of ends up impacted by how we're sleeping. So what I want to talk about today is kind of what I found in the literature for how sleep is impacting our testosterone. And we already know that sleep impacts, like I said, our mood and our energy levels. And some of that probably has to do with testosterone levels. So what testosterone does for us in our bodies is that it allows us to build strength, to build muscle mass and maintain muscle mass, especially as we age. It allows us to maintain our bone density, our energy levels, our sex drive, of course, and our libido, our mental agility, and our fertility. In men specifically, our testosterone naturally will start to decline. I shouldn't say our because I'm not a man, but in men, their testosterone will start to decline about 1% per year, starting in the 30s and 40s. And that sort of lower testosterone level can cause things like lower sex drive, issues with erectile function. It can cause irritability, difficulty concentrating, depression, weaker bones, muscle loss, fatigue, trouble sleeping. And so there's this two-way relationship between testosterone and sleep where having enough testosterone is supportive of sleep, and having enough sleep is supportive of testosterone. Yeah, I see a comment. I heal like a crazy person in my sleep. Yes, everybody heals like a crazy person in their sleep. It's really it's the fastest way that you can improve healing of your body, right? Whether it's an injury or anything like that. And so women also have testosterone, and in women, low testosterone might cause things like low libido or fertility problems, osteoporosis or weakening of the bones, sluggishness, fatigue, and sleep disturbances as well. And so when we're thinking about sleep and testosterone, you might be wondering, why would sleep affect testosterone anyway? And the reason is because our testosterone cycles throughout the day. So kind of like how our stress hormones cycle throughout the day, our testosterone does the same thing. So it has this kind of 24-hour cycle that it usually surges, where our testosterone starts off really high in the mornings, and then it kind of slowly declines throughout the day. But there's little mini bursts that are happening every 90 minutes or so. And so when we get to the end of the day, testosterone ends up pretty low. We've kind of used it throughout the day. We'll use that analogy. And then during the first 3 hours of the night, testosterone kind of surges again. But if you wake people up and you kind of like interrupt their sleep, you don't see that same really big surge in testosterone that you would get at the beginning of the night, which is what you need for repairing your cells and repairing your muscles and repairing tendons and growth in general, or like cellular repair. And so while you might think, okay, well, it sounds like I just need only 3 hours of sleep is probably good to get that little surge of testosterone, the reality is that that's still not enough, which is unsurprising there. But one of the studies that I was looking at had showed that just a week's worth of 5 hours of sleep. So they took people and they limited them to 5 hours of sleep for about a week. And they saw that testosterone levels dropped 10 to 15% in these men, which is the equivalent of about 10 to 15 years of aging, just from a week's worth of 5 hours of sleep. And there's a lot of people out there that are surviving on 5 to 6 hours of sleep, right? And so that's really concerning to me. It even happens after just 1 or 2 nights of low sleep. So if you take you take sleep away from men for one night, you can see a marked decrease in the morning testosterone, right? When it's supposed to be really high. We see a marked decrease in the testosterone of people. And again, these are all healthy young men, people in their 20s and 30s. It's really hard to find data in women. So most of this is with respect to men. Haven't found a ton on people looking at testosterone levels in women. And so now you're probably wondering, so how is sleep affecting the testosterone levels? And part of this is because that when we're not getting enough sleep, that tends to raise our cortisol levels. And that's a stress hormone. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And normally you've got cholesterol in your body, which is a good thing. We need cholesterol for things. And that can turn into estrogen. It can turn into testosterone. But cholesterol can also be turned into cortisol. And so if your stress levels are really, really high, and the body's going to use the cholesterol to replenish the stress hormones, kind of at the expense of testosterone. Raymond, amount of sleep versus quality of sleep. There's more evidence that the quality of sleep is impacting, right? So when you kind of have really fragmented, interrupted sleep, that interrupts the testosterone. But there's also evidence that the duration, right? In that one study we were looking at where 5 hours of sleep, regardless of what that quality looked like, the 5 hours just wasn't enough to keep testosterone up. So I think there's a little bit of both going on. So what this relationship looks like in much older men. So if you're looking at men that are kind of in their 60s and up, testosterone, like if you manipulate older men's sleep and you increase their sleep duration so anywhere up to 9.9 hours, let's call it 10 hours, but every hour or every half hour, the more sleep that people in their 60s are getting, the higher their testosterone goes, up to like a 10-hour point. And this is the same for muscle mass and muscle function as well. So more sleep is giving these older people a competitive advantage, we'll call it, is giving them an advantage with their testosterone levels. As far as, need to sleep for a week straight, stress levels off the chart. Yep. And this, Byron, the sleep that you get will also help your stress levels, right? So sleep can kind of dampen how stressed we feel as well. So go ahead, sleep for a week. Okay. So the other interesting thing that I found is that if you know you're only going to get 5 hours of sleep, it's better if you get the second half of the night, which seems a little counterintuitive because we talked about testosterone surging in the early part of the night. But when I went into the research to look, they looked at restricting people to the early parts of the night. Like they allow you to sleep from bedtime to maybe 2 a.m., give people like 4.5 hours. Or did they allow people to sleep from, 2 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. or 7 a.m.? And actually, if you kind of restrict your sleep to those early hours of the night, you're going to have a better response in testosterone, or your testosterone is not going to dip as much versus if you're having to wake up super, super early. So if you can't get a full night's of sleep, it's better to have that second half of the night. So I would rather for your testosterone levels that you go to bed later as opposed to waking up really, really early. Okay. All right. So can we catch up on sleep, at least when it comes to testosterone? And I found a 2015 study that looked at men that are normally sleeping about 6.2 hours per night. And honestly, that is so many people that are averaging around 6.2 to 6.5 hours per night. But after 3 nights of giving these people a 10-hour window, the testosterone levels had increased even compared to when they were sleeping for their 6 hours a night or their 6.2 hours a night. So yes, you can catch up on your testosterone by doing like 3 days of 10-hour nights, or like Byron said, sleeping for a week. But I think my concern there would be then for those other days, you're still getting that dip. So yes, you can make it up with maybe 3 nights of sleep, but you're still operating with that lower testosterone level on those nights that you're not getting enough high quality sleep. Okay. So the really good news here is that there are other lifestyle things that you guys can do in order to bump your testosterone, even if you're in maybe a season of your life where your sleep is not good or you just don't have the time for sleep. There's other things you can do to keep testosterone levels high-ish. Certainly, they're still going to be impacted by sleep. But the first one that I found was actually light exposure. And I talk about this a lot when it comes to enhancing sleep quality, because when we get really, really bright light, that does something to our circadian rhythm where it keeps it really synchronized and improves our sleep quality at night, right? The depth that we're sleeping at night. And how that impacts testosterone, this came from a little study where I found I found this study where they limited these men's sleep to, they got 2 days of only 3 nights of sleep. So this sounds terrible, but they got 2 nights, 3 hours. They were only allowed to sleep for 3 hours. And as you would expect, their morning testosterone decreased, their performance on these memory tasks decreased, their ability to sustain attention decreased. But if these people got really, really bright light in their eyes, I think they did it for I believe it was 5 or 6 times that day. They got really bright, outdoor light in their eyes. Their testosterone levels actually returned to their baseline, regardless of how much sleep they had. Their performance on the memory, unfortunately, didn't improve as much. So sleep had definitely kind of been too much for the bright light to overcome that, but it did affect their testosterone levels. So if you're somebody who knows you got a really bad night of sleep, you can kind of monitor, or you can kind of modulate the impact on your testosterone by getting really, really bright light, being outdoors a couple of times during the day. The other thing that you can do lifestyle-wise in order to bump testosterone, again, even if you have poor sleep, if poor sleep is a given right now, resistance training is the other big lifestyle way that you can improve testosterone. Specifically about 3 times per week for at least 4 weeks. We'll give you kind of both that short-term boost in testosterone that happens after every workout, but it also gives kind of a longer lasting boost in testosterone as well. Oh, T, is your microphone muted?
Oh,
that's okay. Okay. And so with heavy resistance training, the more muscle mass that you get involved will also have a bigger impact. So it'll proportionally increase testosterone more. So for example, if I'm just doing, let's say I've got the option to do curls, bicep curls, or the option to do something like pull-ups. The biceps curl is mainly going to involve the biceps, versus a pull-up is going to hit the biceps. It's going to hit the lats. It's going to hit a bunch of stuff in your shoulder blades. And so if you're thinking about it from I need to boost my testosterone lens, it's better to get more muscle mass going for those workouts. Ooh, Raymond, let's see what we got. During military training, subjected to 3 days of sleep deprivation. Yup, it seems counterintuitive to have to make this a part of training. Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely some benefits to be had from going through that training, in that you can feel and experience how your body reacts to those days of sleep deprivation. So if you had never gone through that training, you might not know kind of how your brain works after 3 days of sleep deprivation, or how your body feels. So that if it were ever to come up in some sort of combat scenario, then you'd be able to, you kind of know how your body's going to respond. But yeah, in terms of for your health, it's certainly not great for your health to go through 3 days of sleep deprivation. But your training I think the training still has some value, even if it's detrimental to your health. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about here is that in addition to resistance training, there's some evidence that 2 other forms of exercise can also improve testosterone levels, and that's HIIT training, high intensity interval training, can also boost it. And then sprints as well. So high intensity running, we'll call it. Kind of interval style training, versus something like endurance running, which tends to lower testosterone if you're doing really long amounts of distance over long periods of time. So we kind of covered, let's recap all this. We covered how and why sleep might impact testosterone levels. We went over some of the studies that showed that the timing of sleep makes a difference, as well as the quality of sleep makes a difference. We talked about some of the things that we can do to boost testosterone levels lifestyle-wise, right? We're staying far away from medical interventions. That's something that's outside of my scope. But lifestyle things that you can do to boost testosterone, which is your light exposure, right? Bright light, outdoor light, resistance training, HIIT training, sprint training. And so I'm going to pull T back on and we can go through some questions. Yay. Hello, T.
Hello. Sorry about the mic situation. I was like fumbling for some pens. I'm in the middle of a move, so I've got stuff everywhere, but you can't see that from your end. But I was actually able to go into the LinkedIn chat and respond to most people, which is good. I think the question about the counterintuitive aspect of sleep deprivation training, that is a really great question, and you answered it great, because I think about that too. Knowing how you handle stress when sleep deprived, nobody really handles it well. But when you're in a combat situation, it is important to know what it feels like and to learn how to manage your emotions, your body, like your communication, and understand what it feels like. So when you get to that position in a stressful situation in combat, you know what to do.
You can like expect it too. Yeah. If you're like, I know I'm going to be super irritable, or I know that my reaction times are going to be really bad. If I'm coming off of this sleep, then it kind of shapes how you can behave in that situation better than if you'd never known what it felt like. Yeah.
So can you answer the question about, so there's two of them, testosterone and its life, how it impacts years in your life. So longevity. Can you repeat that, please?
Let me see.
So when you do sleep if you only sleep 5 hours, there's a study you mentioned where you only sleep 5 hours a night for a week, how that impacts years of your life.
Yeah. So that was, let me clarify that, because it wasn't about longevity. So this one study that I'm referencing is that if you sleep for 5 hours a night, and not you, this was in a study, these participants slept for 5 hours per night for a week and saw their testosterone levels drop 10 to 15%, which is the equivalent of aging 10 to 15 years as far as testosterone is concerned. So their testosterone levels looked like people's who were 10 to 15 years older.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, nothing specific about longevity. I'm sure there's research on testosterone levels and longevity. I don't know exactly what that is though.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I mean, since we're on the preventative, reversible side of the healthcare system, really, you can put two and two together, right? Of like, well, if you're not sleeping and your testosterones are greatly impacted along with a lot of most of your other hormones, and your ability to recover, it's going to impact your lifespan. It can.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I'm thinking there is that testosterone is responsible for the maintenance of our muscle mass and our bone density. And we do know that loss of muscle mass is associated with frailty and earlier death, right? When we lose our strength, that just kind of, it pulls years off of our lifespan if we can't get up out of chairs anymore and we're super weak. And so in that way, I can see a line drawn to T and longevity as well.
Right on. One other question is, so for people popping on now, we're about to finish up, but we are talking about sleep's impact on testosterone and the way you show up and lead. So there's a lot of good information in here. If you have, since we're not going to be live for more than a couple more minutes, you can always go back and watch this. It'll be on our YouTube channel, Movement Arcs YouTube channel, on this LinkedIn platform, and on Facebook as well. So, but last question for you, Dr. Marissa, is how can you correlate sleep with one's ability to lead? Like lead a company, right? Lead a group of people. Like, how does sleep impact your ability to lead?
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And so what we didn't get to dive into today is one of my favorite pieces of of sleep, which is how it impacts the way that we show up in kind of our emotional lives and our reactivity to the situations that are presented to us in our daily life. And part of that is a little bit related to testosterone, and that testosterone is a stress buffer, right? So when our testosterone levels are normal, we're more buffered against stress. But aside from the testosterone piece, when we're sleeping more, when we're sleeping better, our ability to cope with stress, our perception of the stressors that we're dealing with seems easier when we have enough sleep versus when we're not getting enough sleep. We enter our day-to-day life feeling more overwhelmed. So more overwhelmed with our tasks and feeling less able to cope with our stressors. It makes us more irritable. It makes us more likely to be frustrated. It ruins our confidence. And these are all things that are backed up by the scientific research, that just when you take sleep away from people, their ability to show up in their work and for their families is usually dampened. That, and then there's some really cool research on sleep and relationships, and that you've got more conflict in your relationships that's less likely to be resolved if the night of sleep that you've had before is really, really poor. So if we're looking at relationships, we're looking at mood, we're looking at energy, all of those things, including, even focus, right? There's so much research on sleep and focus and attention, all that as well. So that's really going to impact how we're showing up at work as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you painted a great picture on like the trajectory of problems, the symptoms that we see in the workplace and with people, relationship issues, mood issues. I mean, I can relate to that, having my own mood issues. And the first thing my biofeedback mindfulness meditation therapist asked me years ago was like, "Are you sleeping?" And I was like, "I just vomited all this stuff at you or told you all this stuff that was going on." He's like, "Yeah, I know, but are you sleeping? Because it's not going to be solved if you're not sleeping." And so I think it's more powerful than people think, and which is why this work is so important. So thank you for that. I do want to share with you all. So today, if this resonated with you and you're a leader, you run a business, maybe you're a veteran, and you know your company needs this, needs more information on this, our organization, including Dr. Marissa, and we work with John McCaskill, who's a retired Navy SEAL commander who teaches mindfulness meditation, and Will Schneider, who's an absolute yoga ninja. And we work with an amazing nutritionist, Nikki Ledford, and a coach, Lindsay Renteria. We have a wonderful team of health professionals that help organizations. So we run workshops around making health the leaders of an organization's competitive edge, because we know how much it impacts how they show up for their people. If you're interested in learning more about these competitive edge workshops, book a call. The QR code is right here on the screen. I feel very professional putting a QR code on this screen here. But it is really exciting. We have a number of organizations working with us now and have received great benefits from it. But there's nothing like in-person, interactive, engaging training and making this stuff come alive. Because if you think it's a nice to have, well, your health is not going to be going well for you for the long term. But it needs to be a necessity. And you will see that you will add life to your years and years to your life if you dial in these things, even the things that we talk about today. Usually the first thing where we tell people to start, because making your health a priority and building in good health habits, switching out bad health habits is not easy, right? Turning off your phone, changing your bedroom environment, right? Working on your relationships, that's not easy. We tell people to start with sleep.
So easy.
Yeah, start with sleep. But if you want to learn more, book a call with us. Dr. Marissa, do you have anything else you want to say?
I don't know. I'm just glad that people were engaged and asking questions.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Q&A is literally the most fun part. And that's what I love doing when we're with organizations as well, is just being able to talk to people and help them specifically solve their unique problems. So that's the really fun part.
We got some great engagement, especially on LinkedIn. So If you have any questions and you're listening to this not live, this isn't live for you, then put them in the comments anyway. I'll get them. And if you have anything for Dr. Marissa specifically, I'll make sure she gets the question. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, Dr. Marissa.
Of course.
Bye, everyone.